Now I'm going to get on to stripping and repainting the body. To strip the paint, I'm using lacquer thinner again, and a little toothbrush there and some pliers to handle it. So I'll just go ahead and drop that in there. And this paint seems to dissolve really quickly, so I should have this done in no time. Yep, it's coming off of there already. You can see just a little bit there. And the body has now been completely stripped of its old paint with what was probably one of the quickest paint stripping jobs I've ever done. And there's quite a bit of surface rust around there, so next up for the main body and the roof will be the electrolysis derusting, and then the roof here, and then the little support braces inside just have very light surface rust, so I can use the wire wheel on them. Got the main body derusting in there now with the electrolysis solution, mostly water and some washing soda. It's all hooked up to the car battery charger, and this part should be done in just about an hour, and I can get on to doing the roof there. Now coming back to the body here, I'd say the solution's been doing quite a bit of work there. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that, and then take the part out and clean it up. It looks like it took the rust off there pretty well. Okay, I give it a quick cleaning with soap and water in the sink, and before it dries off I'm going to go ahead and take off the rest of that crud with the wire wheel. Alright, the main body and roof are now both completely rust free and ready for painting. Alright, I've got all the parts all derusted, cleaned up, and ready for painting. So I'll be using Krylon Now Primer Gray. It's what I use for all my old tin plate restorations. It gives a real nice smooth coat and dries fast. And there it is, all nice and primed. Only took about one coat to get it fully covered, and I'll be able to bring that in about 15 minutes once it's all dried and set up. And then next I can get on to spraying the actual color on there. The body needed repainting and other work, but I was surprised to find that the frame parts are in remarkably good condition. All they have is a little bit of age on the surface, so I'm just going to give them a quick spray with some gloss black paint, and they should be good to go. Primer on the body is all dry now. It was just a tiny bit rough in some spots, so I just went over it real lightly with some 600 grit sandpaper to smooth it out. So that should be nice and smooth under the coat of paint. Next I'll be doing the window color. Since it's lighter than the body color, it's a lot better to do the lightest or smaller colors first, which I found through unfortunate experience. And for this, instead of buying a specialty color or anything, I'm just using Krylon Sun Yellow. I've already tested this and it's close enough to the original American Flyer yellow to look good. So I'll just go ahead and start spraying that on. While I'm doing this, I'd just like to note that the paint I'll be using for the body color is an acrylic enamel, and it needs to be done last because the enamel spray paint, it just doesn't coat well over it. It globs up and just looks real nasty. So it's always best to do enamel first. Okay, that coat's been drying for a couple days now, and I found just a couple thin spots on there, so I'm going to give it one more light coat. And it's hard to see just how much paint you're putting on when you're using a thin color like yellow, so there is a little sagging at one end. That sanded down okay, and it should look fine once it's all painted over. One thing I found is that you can never overdo it with the amount of covering that you're putting on the floor. Because I put a little bit too little down the last time and had some overspray and that had to be cleaned up. So just a necessary precaution that should be taken. Okay, the second coat's all dry, turned out nice and bold and smooth, so that should look real good when it's done. And I masked off the windows using precisely cut pieces of masking tape, and I put a little masking on the inside too to make sure no paint bleeds through to the inside of the windows. So now I can put on the main body color. For the color I'll be using this collector color number 216 dark green. I compared it before I stripped the paint from the shell, and the shade of green is very nearly identical to what American Flyer used. Collector color is very thick straight from the can, so to get it ready for airbrush use I thinned it about 2 parts paint to 1 part naphtha, and that seems to do a real good job for this stuff. Okay, I'm all ready to do the airbrushing. Got the paint all set up and got it hooked up to my new compressor here, and I would highly recommend getting a compressor if you do very much airbrushing because it's just so much better than those cans I used to use. So I'll start out painting from the underside, and then I'll flip that over, place it on the cups there. And this paint I'm using, it's such a bold and thick color that I'm hoping I can have this finished in one coat. We'll just have to see how it turns out though. Coat's all finished, went on nice and smooth. I've already inspected it and found that one coat was all it needed this time. So all it needs is a little bit of touch up around where the masking was, because there are a couple little rough spots, and then the painting will be all done. Last thing before reassembling will be to polish up the details. Fortunately there aren't very many parts on this, so it'll go pretty quickly, and most of them are made of brass and nickel, which is pretty easy to polish. So I've got one plate there, and with just a little bit of work it can look like this. For polishing I like to use a felt wheel mounted on a dremel, and I use some hard ivory polish there with a tiny bit of lemon oil to help hold it to the felt. The ivory polish abrasive is extremely fine, so it leaves that really nice polished look, and it works great for metal. And to start polishing I just set the Dremel to a fairly low speed. Just the first setting seems to be enough, and just start going at it. You can see there it starts to work very quickly, so this is a pretty quick process. Okay, that's polished up pretty nice now. It only took about 3 minutes to get it to that point, and the letters are recessed enough that the polishing wheel didn't take out any of the black, so that's helpful. Now to finish it off and just kind of buff it, I like to use a 1-inch felt wheel here. The 1-inch size makes it just a little bit faster on the edge than the small ones, and it's a little bit softer too, so it works really well for buffing. And those look practically new. All you need now is a quick coat of gloss lacquer to seal them and prevent tarnish, and they will be finished. And there's the details, all polished, clear coated, and ready to go. The only parts I couldn't restore were the handrails, so I'll just be replacing those with some new stanchions and steel wire. So that's it for the painting, polishing, and everything, so all that's left is reassembly.